So we were able to make a map in Data Wrapper pretty easily, and that's partly because I had prepared the data for you, and we were able to just load it right in. Sometimes you have to prepare the data yourself, and that might take a little bit more work. Often the challenge is making sure that the join keys for both the data and the shapes line up in a way that allows them to be joined and allows the data to then be mapped. So I'm going to walk you through another example. This one uses public data available from the New York Times about COVID cases. And I'm going to show you the process that I would need to go through in order to make sure those join keys line up. Now, you can just watch along if you like. I'm going to give you a link to the data at the end of the process. So feel free to just see what I'm doing and take notes of the pitfalls and sort of issues that I had to navigate around. Okay, so in this video, we're going to go through the process of making what is a coronavirus map of the United States by county. And these are these little shapes here on the New York Times site. And I'm going to walk through this kind of quickly. Feel free to pause the video if you need to, but I want to show you in a very real sense what you often run up against when you're trying to map something like this. Okay, so what do we need? We need data and we need the shapes. Okay, so let's start with the data. The data is actually available from the New York Times. They publish every day COVID-19 data for the US and I believe the world. And so it's available as a public service. So we're going to get our data here, specifically this US counties recent.csv. If you want to go right to this data, you can go to bit.ly/mapping-data-2, and that'll take you right here. This is updated every day. So that's where we're going to get our data. And then we are going to need to marry them or join them with shapes, those county shapes. And we'll do it again in Data Wrapper. So let's go over to Data Wrapper and just check out those shapes. So if you're not already logged in, go ahead and log in. But otherwise, I'm going to go to the dashboard and I'm going to say create new map. Okay. And again, we're going to make a choropleth map, which is coloring shapes. And here's where we're looking at the shapes. So in this case, Data Wrapper actually provides shapes of USA counties. They change over time, and so 2022 is the one we want. So we picked that. And you can see up in the little preview, that looks a lot like the map that we looked at from the New York Times with all of the little counties across the United States. Okay, so I'm going to hit proceed here because I want to show you something important, and that is what Data Wrapper is looking for a join key. Now remember, the join key is the piece of data that is shared between your data and the shapes. And in this case, we have the shapes. And the answer to that question is that it's called the FIPS code. So that's just a numbering system that's used for U.S. counties. In your country, the municipalities or the regions or the counties may be named or numbered differently. But in the U.S., often this is how we go about it. Every county has a 5-digit number. And that's what Data Wrapper is going to want, is this 5-digit number, because then they can join your data with these shapes. Okay, so that's what we're after, that 5-digit number. Okay, so here we have, back at the New York Times data, we have all of this data. It's not in a form here that we can work with, so I need to download this. So I'm going to right-click on this page and save this to my downloads folder. And there we go. And now I'm going to, now that that's downloaded, I'm going to start a new Google Sheet with sheets.new. That gives me a new Google Sheet, and I'm going to import that data from my downloads folder. And I'm going to upload it. And I just drag that file that I just downloaded out of my downloads folder and into that box. And so it uploads. This takes a couple of minutes. Oops, here. First I'm going to actually insert this at the selected cell. And I don't want to convert the data to numbers, or text to numbers and things. I don't want it to be guessing at what are numbers and what is text for now. So I'm going to just say import data. And this actually takes about a minute, so I'm going to fast forward. It really does take a full couple of minutes for it to fully load. So if it looks like it's not done or if it's not responsive right away, that's why. Okay, I'm going to rename this and just call it COVID counties. So I have that straight. And so here's what a couple of things I need to deal with. One thing I like to do is I like to just drag that down here so we have the columns at the top. Column names stay there. That's just by dragging that little bar. Okay, so and in fact, I'm interested in this column here, cases average per 100K. So that's the rate. That's what we're going to be looking for. But there's some other things I need to do first. For one thing, this data has 30 days worth of data in it, and I just want the most recent data. So I want the most recent day. What I'm going to do is highlight this and use this button here called create a filter. And then you get this little sort of triangle thing, this little filter icon. I'm going to click on that. I can zoom in here just a little bit to make this a little clearer. Here we go. And here are all the days I can choose from. I'm going to clear them all and just pick the day I want, which is at the bottom. For me, that's May 13th. That's my most recent day. You're going to be doing this later, so you'll have an even more recent day. So then I hit OK, and I have all of just these days showing this day. Okay. So from here, wildly, we actually have to copy all of this data into a new sheet so we don't end up dealing with any of the other days that we filtered out. So I'm going to do Command A right here, and that's going to highlight all of my data. And I'm going to do Edit, Copy. Now down at the bottom, there's this plus sign, Add Sheet. So I'm going to add a new sheet to my spreadsheet. And then I'm going to just do Edit, Paste. And that will paste all of my data right into that spot. There we go. Okay, and then our last step on this data is that we need a column of data that matches what Data Wrapper will be looking for. And remember, just to recall, it's looking for a GeoID, and it's 5 digits. And if you look at the New York Times information, this is actually the 5-digit number that we want, except it's got USA put in front of it, which isn't going to match. So I need to fix this. So I'm going to add a new column called plain GeoID. And then I'm going to use a little formula, which is =right. So I want the right portion of this cell, and I want 5 characters, so I'm putting a 5 in there. And so now I get that value I need, which is this 5-digit GeoID code. And then if I copy this down, so I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of my data and highlight this all the way down, and then use Command D for down. That formula, that little right formula, gets populated all the way down. Something I want to point out, which is really important, this is actually being treated as a string, almost like a word, and not a number. And you know that because there's a 0 at the beginning. If it were a number, that 0 would disappear. And that becomes actually an issue when you're matching postal codes in the US, zip codes, FIPS codes, other codes where there are leading zeros, because they won't necessarily match otherwise. So this is important. Sometimes if you run into an issue where a bunch of states or postal codes aren't matching, often it's a number string problem. Here we're all set. But that's something to watch out for. Okay, so now we can download this as the data that we're going to use. So I'm going to say download, comma, separated values. This file that I'm downloading is also available to you. So if you didn't want to go through that whole process and you just want to pick up here, that's at bit.ly/mapping-data-3. Okay, so now that we have that, we can go back to Data Wrapper and upload that file. So I'm going to say upload file, upload my COVID counties file. Okay, and now it's pulled in all of these values. And if you'll notice, like if you just take a look here, it's pulled in the date, and it has all of the New York Times data in there, and it also has, it's figured out that the FIPS code is in this column, which is correct. There are some red ones here. That's because some of them don't match. This 72999 is actually a special one that the New York Times has added. It's unknown data for Puerto Rico, so that's okay. We're okay with that. You'll see here also Data Wrapper has guessed that what we want to map are cases. And in fact, what we want to map is this column, this cases average per 100,000. That's what this column is. And so I need to tell it that, no, don't use this for values. Use this one. So I'm going to say, I clicked on that little tiny button thing, and it opened up this menu. Use this column for values. Great. And you can see we're getting a little bit of a preview over here. So that's helpful. All right. So now I actually had to go through all of those steps just to make this all work. And let's go on to visualize. And then this is, again, where we would want to sort things out. I'm going to change the color scheme to something that's a little bit more sort of this reddish color, these reddish colors. I'm also, let's go in and make the steps those natural breaks. And then you get to see really a very similar map to what we have over here at the New York Times. The colors are slightly different, but we've just matched that up, and we could change the tooltips and stylize it other ways. But I just wanted to show you the steps I needed to go through to prep the data to make this work. So if that seemed like a lot of work, and it was, I would like to entice you to stick around through week 4, when I'll actually show you how to do that entire process with a 2-word command. Yes, it's possible. I'll show you how to do that. Next week, though, what we're going to look at is how we could go about getting shapes like the shapes we use today, different formats that shapes come in, other pitfalls you may run into when you're making maps. We'll talk more about data classification, and we'll talk about ethical issues and considerations that you should always have in mind when building your maps, both for the way the map is presented, so it's fair, but also how do you maintain the privacy of people who may be represented in those maps. So stick around for that. That'll be next week.